Thank you, Mike Deneen. Greetings from Detroit, Michigan, everybody. It's nice to see your smiling faces online and also in person. These hybrid meetings are challenging to say the least, but it looks like you're doing them about as well as any club I've experienced. I'm very fortunate to do about 100 Rotary talks a year. I never charge Rotary for talks because it's my give back to the organization that I love so much, and it's my pleasure to be with you today to talk about persuasion. For those of you that are retired or perhaps not in the persuasion trade, maybe you're not in sales per se, we all use persuasion to some extent. If you're interested in growing your Rotary Club, you're probably interested in convincing visitors that it's a good idea for them to come back for a second, maybe a third visit, and maybe even put in a membership application. If you belong to a condo association, you're probably trying to persuade your neighbors not to put too much crap on their porch. And if you're on your committee at church, you want people to give more money to the church so that you can repair the church roof. So we all need persuasion at some point in our lives. And it's interesting to me that persuasion's gotten a bad name through the years. Salespeople, unfortunately, are not highly regarded in our society. You're probably aware there's now a do not call registry in the United States, which means it's actually illegal for you to call somebody and try to sell them something. Many states also have a do not knock registry, making it illegal to visit the premise of someone that you want to sell something to. So sales has become extremely difficult. When I do sales training, even salespeople feel bad about selling. I hear a lot of salespeople during the sales pitch actually say these words: "I'm not trying to sell you anything here." And to that, I just said, that's kind of ridiculous. Of course, you're trying to sell something. There's no shame in trying to sell something, especially if you're doing it ethically and morally and legally. And there's certainly no shame in trying to get someone to change their opinion or convince them to do something that might be in their best interest. And that's the approach that I'd like to take today as we talk about the benefits of persuasion and some simple techniques that you can use to increase your persuasion skills. Can I get a quick thumbs up from the people on the screen? And of course, there's you can do it live as well, just to take a look around the room, just to see how many people actually persuade for a living. If you're in sales of any kind, please give me a thumbs up. If you are in leadership of any kind, give me a thumbs up. Leaders need to persuade their team to do things. If you live with another human being, give me a thumbs up. Thank you very much. Pretty soon, all of you will be deciding where to go on your first big trip out of the house, and that's going to be some persuasion, you can bet. So this idea of getting somebody to change their mind in politics is called flip-flopping. And politicians can quickly lose their constituent base by changing their mind about anything. And what's interesting to me is that if you can present compelling data or evidence or facts that can get someone to see something a different way, well, good on you. I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good idea to flip and then flop and then flip and then flop. But if you change your mind about something, say once every 10 or 15 years based on new information, there's nothing wrong with that. I do think there's something wrong about coming on too hard when you're trying to persuade somebody. Nobody likes aggressive persuaders or aggressive salespeople. And unfortunately, Rotary does this a bit. You know, someone will sit next to us at a tent top at lunch and we say, "Hey, how are you? You're visiting today?" And they go, "Yeah." And they go, "Maybe you'd like to join." And you're like, right away, we're at them trying to, get them to sign up. And I'm like, take it easy. Let's ask them a few questions first. Let's develop a rapport and relationship. Now, when I teach this in an online sales course, I call this the reverse presentation. And simply put, the reverse presentation means that if I'm trying to sell you something, before I launch into my presentation, I'm going to try to get you to present to me first. So let's put Rotary clothes on this discussion. If you sit next to me at a tent top as a visitor to a Rotary Club meeting, instead of me pressing you right away on all the benefits of joining our great organization, and there are many, I first want to know a little bit about you. Do you have a partner at home? Do you have children? Do you like to travel? What do you do for fun? Are you still working? If you're working, what industry are you in? These types of things. And once I collect a bit of information about you, then I know more about how I can present Rotary to you in a way that you would be more likely to be warm to it. Salespeople call this identifying the hot button, right? We don't have to be that dramatic about it. Just ask the person some questions about themselves first, and then you know what perspective they have about life or things in general, and you can use that language when you're presenting back to them. Back to the work trade, when I do ride-alongs with salespeople, we'll walk in, and it's amazing how the salesperson talks about their presentation. It's always me, me, me. Thank you for taking the time to visit with me today so I can tell you about my company. I have a great PowerPoint presentation for you. I need 25 minutes. Can we get started now? And it's all about them. And I find by taking as much as 10 minutes at the start of a 1-hour meeting to talk about nothing but the other person, and then casually, almost accidentally rolling into my own presentation, I have a much better foothold for a relationship, whether the person decides to buy from me or not. So this is the idea that we are trying to convey to you today. So there are 3, I mentioned I was going to give you some techniques for this. The abbreviation I'd like to use today is STP. If you've got a pen, you want to write these down, you won't remember them. And I'm going to be recommending videos, movies, books that you can read and research that I've done that will convince you that this is absolutely the way to go. STP stands for signals, technique, and progress. Signals, technique, and process. And if you use this STP process, you'll be much further ahead with your persuasion abilities. So signals are about tone, everybody. We're talking now about that give and take that happens before you actually start the persuasion, right? How are you? Tell me about yourself. Where did you take your last trip to? What do you like to do for fun, right? That kind of give and take is very, very useful versus the data dump, starting right away with the data dump. I prefer something called open questions. So the difference between an open question and a closed question. Closed questions are often called binary questions. They only have 2 answers, yes or no. Open questions cannot be answered that simply. The other person would have to explain themselves a little bit. They'd have to talk to you, right? So I'd rather ask you, how has your family been faring during COVID, rather than how are you feeling today? Because how are you feeling today, the default answer is always going to come back, fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And they might ask me how I'm doing, and the answer is fine. We're not getting anywhere here. So if I say something like, how is your family faring? Do you have a spouse or a partner at home? Do you have children? How do they feel about all this? Now we've got this kind of give and take, and I can learn a little bit about your natural habitat. That's very helpful. Open questions help you get that done. And then finally, it culminates in the reverse presentation. Once I feel like I have enough information about you to understand at least the basics about where you're coming from, I can then start my presentation. Now, my presentation will also be using internal signals to monitor, almost like a GPS, like I'm on a journey. And I'll be using things that we call in the sales trade trial closes, anchors, right? These are things that we can use to get the other person to tell us we're on the right path. An anchor might be, does this sound good to you so far? A trial close might be, does Rotary sound like it might be a good fit for you? Because I don't want to keep talking about it for another 20 minutes if you already belong to Kiwanis and there's no chance you're ever leaving Kiwanis, right? I'd like to talk about something else. So these are some of the techniques that can be used. The T in STP stands for technique. I want to show you a couple of techniques for active listening. Some of you are doing it right now. Harriet on the screen is doing it. Harriet, don't move. You're doing a technique called the thinker pose, and all of us can do it. I see that Shannon is doing it right now as well. The thinker pose, everybody, is just done by, and we can all do it together. Thank you, Richard Spong, you're doing it. Just move one of your hands very slowly to your chin like this, everybody. That's it. And you might nod your head just slightly, right? It doesn't mean you agree with me necessarily. It just means you understand me or that you're listening to me, right? And this is active listening. There's no more powerful signal to send another person that you care about them than to do this while they're talking, right? It's just, I'm listening to you. This is fascinating. Thank you very much. So a lot of people think it's corny, but this is the type of nonverbal confirmation that precedes and is embedded in a good sales presentation. So active listening is important. I also employ something called the cognitive biases. Now, these were first discovered by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Kahneman actually won a Nobel Prize for this. The cognitive biases are simple psychological or behavioral psychology that allow you to understand how people think, how they get through, how they navigate a persuasive presentation. I'll give you 3 quick examples of cognitive biases. The first one is called optimism bias, right? So soon a bunch of presidents, 35,000 presidents will take over for 35,000 clubs all over the world. And some of those presidents will have what's called optimism bias. Their attitude will be, well, COVID's over now. I can't do worse than last year. I don't really have to try. I could just phone this presidency in and everything's going to be fine. And they will find out very quickly that's not how you have a good year as president of a Rotary Club. The opposite of optimism bias is pessimism bias. And pessimism bias says, well, our club hasn't grown for 4 years. We've had some pretty good presidents before me. I might as well not even try. And that president would be a victim of pessimism bias. A third type of bias is blind side bias. As a communication consultant that comes in and works with sales teams and leadership teams, I've got an executive coaching session online right after this session today. As a consultant, my job is to tell these executives what's working in their organizations and what's not working. And when I tell them what's not working, invariably the executive says to me, they even go like this, they use my own techniques against me. They go like this and they go, I don't see it. And I'm like, well, of course you don't see it. It's your organization. You have blindside bias. We all have things we don't see coming. And so as a consultant, I'm trying to help him see that blind spot, right, that he can't see. And that's my challenge in the consulting world. I also teach 22 sales closes. So there are lots of different techniques for persuasion. A very quick example of that is called the right angle close or the sharp angle close. A lot of people get mired in answering all the objections, trying to deal with people that have issues with different characteristics of whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. And sometimes I've just closed a deal by saying, why don't you just try it? You can always get a refund if you don't like it, or you can always quit the club in 90 days if you don't like it. Why don't you join? I bet you're going to really enjoy it. And they say, okay. And they say, give me an application. And I got a pretty good record for bringing Rotarians in, often with that very same right angle or sharp angle close. The P in STP is progress. So far we have signals for S, technique for the T in STP, and the final initial is P for progress. If you're going to be a champion persuader, if you're going to be a champion collector of funds for, say, sponsorships for events, for the Denver Rotary Club, you need to get really good at closing. That's what we call it in the sales parlance. And closing is about asking for the order. I tell people when I'm teaching presentation skills, they present like a pro program that Mike Deneen was telling you about. I say you've got to have a call to action. You've got to tell people to actually do something at the end of your presentation. So it's called the CTA. And I've posted into chat, I'll do it one more time for you here, these links that I want to encourage you to check out. Here they come again. And for those of the administrators can get this from the TXT file in chat and share them with the people at the live meeting. But if you're live right now and you just want to write them down, I'll tell you where to find the links. I have an effective leadership book that is available to you. It's free. It's an ebook. It's 30 pages. My gift to you, michaelangelocaruso.com/leader-ebook. michaelangelocaruso.com/leader-ebook. If you do speaking of any kind, you want to join my free Present Like a Pro group on Facebook, ongoing tips on how you can be a better speaker and presenter. If you are interested in growing your Rotary Club, raising more money, or getting attention for the greatest service organization in the world, join my free Get the Word Out Now group on Facebook. I see some people are doing this right now in real time. Good for you. And then finally, my fun newsletter, which goes out every Friday. You'll look forward to this email every week. It's called the Friday 5, michaelangelocaruso.com/Friday-5. So those are the techniques for making things happen when you are doing good things for Rotary and trying to persuade people to do things. I want to tell you a quick story, and then we'll open up for Q&A, and I'll answer anything we have time for. And I know you can get the questions live by queuing up for Debbie, President Debbie, and you can also message chat or the administrator in chat, and we'll get you happy. And some of you attended this event, I think. I happen to be public image coordinator for Zone 28 in my part of the world. Oh, I see people are already ordering up the ebook. Well done. So as public image coordinator for Zone 28, my job was to stage a training session, and Director Valerie Wafer, who has just been named Vice President of Rotary for the 21-22 Rotary year, said to me, Michael, whatever you do when you hold this training, let's not call it a training. People are zoomed out. Let's make it creative and fun. I said, you got it. So we named the event Public Image, the Musical. Thumbs up if this is a mildly interesting title, if you're somewhat intrigued by this. Yeah. You know that we had 650 registrations for this little zone event. 650 registrations. We had everybody on the public image team, on my public image team, has a special skill. So somebody spoke about video marketing, somebody spoke about copywriting, somebody spoke about the database, Club Runner or DACDB. Somebody spoke about Instagram stories. We did 8 tight 5-minute presentations. And this program ran like a TV show. It was amazing. And so what we did in our own little way was, first of all, persuade people to log on to something that they might not have cared about in any other capacity. But we use a technique called disruptive marketing to get their attention. We pulled these registrants into the program. We collected their emails in the registration. We remarketed to them afterwards, sending them not only the full-length video, but now we're rolling out the individual videos, the segments. And the whole thing was about getting them to invite our consultants, public image consultants, to speak to their clubs, districts, and membership committees. And we've had more invitations to speak in the last couple of weeks here than we had all year, thanks to this event. So we know these persuasion techniques work. Nobody likes to be sold to, and we know that a lot of people don't like to sell. But if you substitute the verb, right, instead of the verb sell, substitute help or educate, right, or entertain. And the whole sales process takes on a much different tone. It's something that everybody rather enjoys, they look forward to, and you'll find that they'll even recommend you to other people. Why don't you talk to my friend so-and-so? He'd like to hear from you on this. So I hope you've enjoyed my content today. I'm happy to take questions to President Debbie, or I know you've got a system for collecting these, and Lauren has been great in talking me in and organizing the questions for us today. So what kind of questions do you have for me? Let's see if we can get some of those on the table for you. By the way, while we're queuing up the first question, yes. Hi, Debbie.